Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Suter. I'm the founder of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center. And thank you for taking your time out of your day this afternoon to be with us today for our data analytics working group launch. Really excited about this. I think we've been wanting to launch this for a while. I think I was remembering back in August of last year, we were waiting for some White House guidance to come out, and I think everything's worked out really well. We had a lot of activity on this front. We've had the Chief Data Officer Council formed. We've had a lot of activity that you'll hear about today. And without further ado, I will get this. We got an action-packed day to you. And my first introduction, besides John Sprague, who will be kicking us off here in a minute, is I want to introduce Kirsten Patton, our working group manager. I'm going to turn the program over to her, and she's going to kind of walk you through your afternoon, what to expect, and we'll be looking forward to the keynote from my longtime friend John Sprague. But good afternoon, Kirsten. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us for this free webinar that launches the different project teams for our ATARC Data Analytics Working Group. This working group is an extension of our already existing AI working group. So you'll learn about the different project teams as well as some of the leaders who are on this working group. It's a technical working group with government, academia, and private industry thought leaders collaborating on different topics of interest to the federal data community. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to our keynote, John Sprague, who is the NASA Deputy Associate CIO for the Transformation and Data Division, as well as the Deputy Chief Data Officer.
Thanks, Tom and Kirsten. This is such an honor to be here. Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is John Sprague. I've been at NASA for 11 years now. Currently, I'm on a detail with the Advanced Air Mobility National Campaign. We're working with the FAA and a bunch of other partners with a goal, and the actual goal is to promote public confidence and accelerate the realization of emerging aviation markets for passengers and cargo transportation in urban, suburban, rural, and even regional environments. So we're basically doing what you might call if some of you that are old enough to remember an old cartoon named Jetsons. It's that kind of stuff, and I had to jump onto that project. So I've been on that detail for 5 months, and I'm looking forward to some more time with that project. So thank you for having me here. I want to first start off to just let you know, prior to this detail, as I was mentioning, I'm the Deputy CDO, Chief Data Officer, but I couldn't turn this project down. And it's funny, my wife bought me a little Jetsons model, plastic model, and put it together, and it's sitting at my NASA headquarters office, and been sitting there for months now, since a lot of us, like probably a lot of you, and why this is virtual, with the COVID virus causing all these issues. So thank you for having me. And so last week was a very exciting time at NASA. For those of you that saw it, I hope a lot of you did. The Mars Rover 2020 Perseverance launch was last week. It's on its way. It's on its way to Mars right now. So a lot of good stuff going on that, and I'll mention that a little bit about that on the next slide. But I wanted to tell you also that we just had the commercial crew make it home safely from a historic launch of the first American astronauts from American soil since the shuttle program. And then we had a splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico on Sunday, for those of you that were able to see that. Lots of great things happening, and I tell you what, a lot of it is all centered around, has a lot to do with data. So we'll talk a lot about that during this meeting. So it's all about the data. I say that all the time. I have it on the bottom of my email for folks that see that, and it's so true, everything we do. Look at the group of people that we have at this data analytics working group launch. We have CIOs, AI experts, directors of AI at GSA, cloud platform leaders, chief data scientists, senior IT policy folks, senior staff writer, generation systems team lead from the NIH, the Institutes of Health, chief ops officers, We even have a physician informist from VA. A lot of good stuff going on there. IT managers, IT advisors, and we even have a doctor and a fellow from the White House Leadership Development Program. So this is such a great group of folks that are coming. I also wanted to shout out and welcome the ATARC board members and general membership that are on this meeting, and of course our own and my good friend Tom Suter, founder and president of ATARC. Thank you for putting this together with your team of very talented folks. Thank you so much for doing that. So just a quick couple little things. I only have a few slides, but and very little time here. So what's going on in data analytics? I've known and I've heard a lot going on lately. It seems like it's never ending. I got a slide that shows you something that's amazing about all the different companies out there and what they're doing. We now have data governance boards across all federal agencies. That's a big change from data being just, it's just data. It's all that. Who cares about that? That just shows how important it is. Really, really cool stuff. And I was thinking about it before this meeting, and I thought, if data is the new oil, then data scientists are the new oil barons. Let me say that again. If data is the new oil, then data scientists are the new oil barons. And I was thinking about that. It's so true. My experience with data scientists, they're very smart. They see patterns where others don't, and that's why they're so valuable. They're the unicorns. They're very rare. I know for the ATARC members, I've mentioned this before. I hired NASA's first one about 4 years ago. He's worth his weight in gold. I love that to say to others. I don't say that to him though, because I got him for the cheap price of a GS15. And believe me, if you look around, they are worth a lot out there for a lot of different reasons. They're in high demand. They can save your agency or your company a lot of funds and personnel time. They're very good at helping automate stuff. So, I've heard of them, data scientists being lent out for short stints, working whatever your issues are, and then they go on to their next project. So, if there's any younger folks in the audience that are, or anybody that is very interested, go out and become a data scientist. That's what I'd like to do in my next life. But it's just so much going on in data. This is a very exciting time. So next slide. There we go. All right. So this slide kind of speaks for itself. This is what I mentioned before, the rover that just took off last week. It lands February 18th, 2021. So get ready for that. The landing site is Jezero Crater. Can't wait to see what it finds when it gets there. Look at all the instruments. Can you imagine all the data that's going to be coming off this, and the analytics that are going to be needed to process all that data? There's all kinds of really cool instruments on there, and they do all kinds of things. Not shown on there is the copter that's going to jump off of there and go fly around. And I was hearing some stuff in the news, and all the publicly releasable information. It's going to take off from the top of that and go over and go for a short stint, come back, and it'll be flying in Mars' atmosphere, which is just amazing. And then it's going to start taking longer and longer trips. And as you can imagine, it's going to be very exciting to look at this copter flying around on another planet, and the first one we've done like that, and being able to see what it sees. And I'm sure that video will all be shared. As a lot of folks know, NASA data, NASA video, a lot of that information is shared widely. It's in our charter from 1958 to do that. So next slide. So can you do AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning without data and all the useful analytics that goes with it? I think if you go to the next slide, you'll see that the obvious answer is no. To be honest, it would be useless. They go together. Isn't AI and ML kind of data analytics on steroids? I think it is. And that's what this meeting that we're having, this first kickoff, which is very timely. You know, data's been around a long time, and but this is the time for it. This is the time for data to really make to shine and to show people what it's worth in these times. And there's a lot with you know, other projects out there with data, and they're finding all kinds of amazing things. So if you look at the next slide, I've been showing the big data analytics, or actually the big data landscape slide for many, many years. I went to go pull it up a few weeks back and went, yeah, I wonder what it looks like today. And it's funny, you can't get it anymore. They don't have the big data landscape one. It morphed into this one that you're looking at. This is the data and AI, artificial intelligence landscape. And look how many areas there are, and all the different companies competing, innovating, consolidating within them. I know the slide's really hard. You can do a quick Google search or some other search and find this slide very quickly. It's amazing. It's really expanded, because the slides before you could actually read all the different companies on them. Now there's just so many out there. And I think that's a great thing. NASA loves partnering with some of these companies and taking the code and using it just the way it is, or sometimes morphing it with some of our code and making it better and working that for things that we need. And then sometimes we do our own code. So we're all over the place on all these different products and software and even hardware that's out there. And they make our job easier. And I appreciate each and every one that does that. Next slide. Here's just a few of the many data analytics topics that we could talk about for hours. You know, the first one there, data privacy, has been just a hot area for actually years now. And there's always something coming out with your data, or your company's data, or your agency's data, and the privacy around it. You know, an example of this that I like to say is, I was doing some projects a while back, and they said, hey, can you share the astronauts' their data? And I was like, well, here's the problem. Even if we take their name out and you put all their data, you know, their age, their, you know, some of their other physical characteristics and things like that, or just their medical data, you could quickly figure out which astronaut that is. And that's not fair to that astronaut. And that's why you don't see that kind of data shared widely as maybe some other data, medical data in particular, that you could then genericize and go, oh, this is just somebody in North America. So it makes it really difficult. The data privacy is very important. You want your data to be secure and private. I want my data secure and private. So it's just a hot topic. I don't think it'll ever go away. It's always number one on a lot of lists. Data and AI ethics is another one. Oh my gosh, you know, using the data ethically and the software that does the analysis of it can have biases put in it. So there's lots of different ways to make sure that doesn't happen. Doing a code check, and there's a lot of other ways, and there's new ways being investigated all the time. I know that I just saw a study a while back, it was just recently actually, in the last couple of months, where ethics of the data and the artificial intelligence in particular are super important to a lot of company and even agency executives. It's very important to them. I know that we just started a AI ethics panel within my group. And I said, oh, I heard about it. I was like, well, I'm on it. I definitely want to help out with that. And maybe we'll come up with some really good ways to make sure that this is taken care of, that ethics are, you know, the data and the machines that work with it are make sure that works correctly. And, you know, gives you unbiased data. That's what or unbiased outcomes to the data, you know. Graph analytics is another really cool one that's really hot right now. It's graph algorithms too, and they're tools, analytical type tools that determine strength and direction, relationships between all the different objects that make up some of these other tools. It's a very powerful tool, and if you're not familiar with it, I suggest maybe looking for an online course, one of those online courses that they offer. A lot of them sometimes are for free. The next one down is digital transformation. I've been a part of the digital transformation effort at NASA. I was lucky. They sent me out to go talk to a bunch of the different companies out there to get their best practices so NASA could use them. By the way, we shared ours too. So it wasn't just a one-way take. We were given some stuff too. And I got to talk to SpaceX and interact with their CEO and others. And it was just an amazing, Boeing and many other companies. And it was an amazing thing that was, we were able to bring all that good stuff back. And the digital transformation effort is nonstop at NASA. It's nonstop at a lot of other companies. And another one of those studies that I read recently said that it's on the top list of projects that a lot of companies and other agencies are doing right now. The next one is R programming language. It's a free language. It's open source too, just like some of the Python and Jupyter notebooks the programs are. All that stuff kind of goes together. I'm sure a lot of the folks that are, really into data analytics here, computer science type people, data people just in general, are familiar with them. It's funny, I've been doing data for a long time in a lot of different places, and I only started in the last 2 years learning about R programming language. One of our great computer scientists did and I helped set it up at headquarters where we could teach R programming in our studio at headquarters in DC. And we had a bunch of people that took it, and I even sat through the class just to freshen up and learn a little bit more. It was awesome. That's the kind of tool that you go grab and use for data out there. Same thing with Python and Jupyter notebooks. And in general, they're free. So, that's great that, you got this whole community that's totally into working on this and helping people. You tell them, hey, it's not working for me to do some X thing. They'll go do some code on it, and the next week you might have some code and might be able to test it out. It's such a great community to work with. And then lastly on here, it's still hot. It's always hot. You got the big three cloud providers, and it's great for competition because they're always coming out with something better and maybe lower prices. So it's awesome for all of us. You got to have a place to put your data. And with data being as gigantic as it is now, and so much coming down, and just imagine just with what was launched recently and all the different data that's going to come back from that, you got to have a place to put it. And it takes up a lot of space. So where you're storing it, and then how close can you get the data analytical tools close to it so that it processes quicker, faster, easier, and you get your answers back. Because in the end, that's what it all matters, right? So the next slide, I'd like to just say, let's get the real show going. Thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate it very much. This is such a thrill for me. I can't wait to see what these panelists are going to be talking about. I enjoy them. I love listening to them, and have fun, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Will we be allowed to distribute these slides afterwards?
Yes. Yep.
Great. Thank you. We had questions about that. Thank you so much for your keynote. Next up, we will dive into our first panel. And with that, I will go ahead and introduce our moderator for that panel. It is Isaac Constance, and he is a senior staff writer at GovLoop.
Thanks, Kirsten. Hi there, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Last time I did one of these, I was talking to myself for about 3 minutes. So hopefully this time's working a little bit better. For all my friends in the DC area, I do hope y'all are staying safe and dry. I've heard the weather's pretty iffy today. And as Kirsten said, I'm a senior staff writer at GovLoop. I'm the notorious name without as much data experience that John mentioned. So actually, I just got done working on a report, though, about data during 2020. It'll be out in about a month or so, but it's called Your Data in the Year of Everything Else. Pretty much I'd heard a bunch of people call this the year of data. And of course, everything else has come to the fold with the coronavirus, as well as the government's response and all the economic fallout of that as well. So I'm excited for that. And over the next hour, I know we'll run through some new developments as well and what we can expect from this group. I'm really excited about the Data Analytics Working Group launch. So thanks to ATARC for supporting this. And with that, I'll introduce our panelists. Let's see. And sorry, just pulling this up real quick. So Tom Harrell has served the NIH since 2005 in various Office of the Director roles. He's currently a senior IT policy analyst with the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences. His private sector experience spanned roles with Jacobs Technology, Lockheed Martin, Merrill Lynch, and Baker's Trust, and Chase Manhattan Corporation. He also serves as board director of the British American Business Association of Washington, D.C. Ryan Bannon is a cloud platform leader for federal at IBM. Ryan has worked in various roles in the federal IT market, and those include running sales and technical teams in cloud, middleware, and AI. In 2020, IBM has joined the federal, state, local, and healthcare business units in a large public federal organization. Dennis Ortega is a White House Leadership Development Program Fellow at the Office of Management and Budget. Dennis works within the Office of the Federal CIO, and I know he's currently working on a program to train federal employees in data science. I'm really interested to hear more about that, and definitely looking forward to that part of the chat. In addition, we have Jose Arrieta. Jose is the Chief Information Officer for the Department of Health and Human Services. As the CIO, Jose provides leadership and oversight for the department's $6.3 billion IT portfolio in support of the department's expansive mission to enhance the health and well-being of Americans. He's a respected leader in applying emerging technologies as well, especially blockchain, artificial intelligence, and robotic process automation, all of which, of course, data plays a big part of. We also have Shakib Shrabi. He's the Chief Data Scientist at the National Technical Information Service, and he's the Predictive Analytics Chair here. The National Technical Information Service is housed within the Department of Commerce and works to provide innovative data services to federal agencies through joint venture partnerships with the private sector to advance federal data priorities, promote economic gain, and enable operational excellence. So with that, those are our panelists. I'm excited to get to the conversation. Just a couple of quick reminders. There should be a question and answer box right at the bottom of your screen. If you submit one, we'll do our best to get to it here. If not, we'll try to answer it off air. And we'll also be working from home, of course. So any interruptions, you know, the new normal, just we'll do our best to work through them. With that in mind, though, I'll remind all of the panelists just to mute your microphone if there is a lot of background noise and you're not speaking, just to so we don't distort anyone else's sound. With that, though, I think we should be all good to go. So I guess starting off, Tom, you know, what are you currently working on, and what are some of your current focuses regarding data and analytics?
I am currently working on the scientific intelligence from enterprise research platform as a service. We had started to develop the concept itself from our FITAR clearance acquisition strategy work. And there we had something called single stream process, but it was both expensive and labor intensive in that it would require us to pull a lot of the IT staff in to develop it. And it would also require that me and my colleague train them in IT service management. No time for that. So that is really what is taking up the majority of our time. The platform as a service is a public-private partnership with several vendors. So that's sort of what's taking up my time right now.
Great. Shakib, how about you? What are you all currently working on right now?
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Isaac, for that great introduction. And I want to also thank John Sprague for starting us off. I just want to expand first on something that John said. I believe that data is better than oil because it's a renewable resource. So it's very important to point that out. But like you said, I'm a chief data scientist at NTIS, which is an agency within the Department of Commerce. And our mission is to assist US government agencies in leveraging data to achieve mission outcomes and to become more effective and efficient to deliver citizen services. And so we work with several federal agencies within that context. And then, like you said, we have access to what we call the joint venture partners, which is a list of private sector companies, academic institutions, and nonprofit to address national data-centric challenges that require quick access to private sector ingenuity and expertise to help agency achieve capacity to scale and time to market. So we're working currently with JAIC, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center at the DoD. We're working with DHS, several programs there, NRMC and PARM. We're working with DOL, the Department of Labor, with the Department of Energy, and so on and so forth. So we all work with these different agencies to address their data problems and help them use data to achieve mission outcome, to improve their decision that they're making, to be better operationally, etc. For instance, we have Jose today with HHS. We worked with HHS as well in fraud detection. So one of the application of data analytics is, of course, fraud detection. Fraud is a big issue in government and agency to try to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse, of course. But HHS is a big agency, like you mentioned. So it's a trillion with a T dollars agency, and federal and Medicare is a $600 billion program. So the Government Accounting Office, GAO, has estimated about 10 to 15% goes into illegal payments. So for instance, one of the programs that we worked on is how to make sure that every dollar spent goes actually to a legitimate Medicare recipient and used for a legitimate Medicare health issue. And that goes on with how do you do that? Well, you use predictive analytics, and you use the data that allow you to learn about what are the normal behavior and what's abnormal behavior that can indicate maybe a fraud, and help the specialists in the field to actually pursue those areas that they think may have some issues because the resources are limited. So that's one of the examples that I can list for now.
Perfect. Thank you. Jose, I'll go to you next. And I understand you have to drop at 2:30 as well, so we'll try to front load a few questions for you.
So thank you guys. It's really great to be with you and to meet you all virtually. I'll just share kind of one thing, and we have a couple of things that we haven't announced yet, but starting on around April 5th and until April 10th, we built something. It's called Hhs Protect. It currently has 4 billion data elements in it. We are serving all 50 states and all 6 territories. We're pulling data from them. We're also sharing data with them. We're adding users each and every day. So we have tribal leaders, state officials, federal officials focused on COVID-19 response. We're currently onboarding congressional leaders as well as state hospital associations. So we're at about 3,000 users within our multi-sided platform right now. We interface and collect data directly from 5,900 hospitals. The amount of hospitals that submit data to us changes each and every day. We're pulling data from 225 different entities or data sets across the United States. We have time series capability built into it, so we can go back with a hash. So at every moment in time, we have a record of any parsing, curation, sharing that has occurred within the portfolio. We actually built a QR code on top of that hash so that we can share data with integrity outside of our portfolio. We built a modern identity access management authentication capability so that federal, state, local, and commercial partners can actually access the platform in a controlled manner. So meaning when CDC actually logs onto the platform, they not only do they control all the users within CDC that get access to HHS Protect, they also control who sees the CDC data sets once they're on HHS Protect, because they have complete control over the data elements and the data sets themselves. We're running a supervised machine learning capability off of it. We are supporting Dr. Fauci in identifying hotspots across the United States for the clinical trials. We are also using that same hotspot identification capability to distribute lab supplies and remdesivir at the state level as well as the individual zip code level across the United States. The platform itself is built of 8 different commercial technologies for identity access management, authentication, secure file transfer. It's all in AWS, commercial cloud environment. The time series based curation, parsing, and sharing platform is a commercial technology. It's overlaid with mapping technologies in DocuSign, or well, the capability that DocuSign offers so that we can enter into agreements. And then we're running the 4 billion data elements. We're running a supervised machine learning capability. Our focus is 1, protect people. The faster the clinical trials go, the better we distribute labs, test supplies, or remdesivir, the more people will survive. So our number 1 goal is protect people. And then it was built with the idea of protecting privacy, protecting security, protecting transparency, and protecting the ability to share data with integrity. So it took us about 5 days to stand it up. We've been growing it ever since. And that's kind of what we've been working on. We've taken the same approach in some other areas. We haven't made them public yet, but Isaac or anyone on the phone, we plan to do so shortly. And once we do, we're happy to talk about those projects as well. But it's the same kind of model.
Great, thanks, Jose. Yeah, and definitely look forward to hearing more about that. I know, obviously, you all have been busier than just about any other federal agency during this time. We'll keep going through the introductions just real quick. So let's see, Dennis, what have you all been working on recently, and yeah, what's top of mind for you?
Hi, good afternoon, Isaac. Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, just want to touch on a couple things that John Sprague covered this just a little while ago. I mean, I think this is a great time. I'm here to actually announce the launch of the Federal Data Science Training Program. This is a pilot program that we are working with our 24 CFO Act agencies across the government. And I want to grab a couple things that Tom said. He says it's all about the data, right? And he's really excited about having data scientists that can see patterns. And, one of the things that he said is also go out and become a data scientist. I mean, this is definitely an emerging field. I think just from a federal standpoint, we're doing that. We're doing just that. We're going out and we're looking for the best talent that's out there. And at times when we don't necessarily have, the ability to go out and recruit, we're looking at how can we develop that skill in-house. So that's really what this program, the basis of this program is all about. It's to upskill. We're going to take existing federal employees and walk them through a training program so that way they can gain the skill sets and the ability to gain efficiencies in their regular jobs, right? So with this training program, this is all coming to you as part of a core focus from the CIO Council. We're really excited that this was funded, so we're not charging any money back to or any costs over to our 24 CFO Act agencies. It absolutely supports our President's management agenda, and it's in alignment with our cross-agency priority goals. So the need for upskilling federal employees, again, we talked about this as being an emerging data science where individuals are going to be required to gather data, analysis, presentation. We know that this is absolutely a need. This program was developed in conjunction with the Census Bureau. Census Bureau kicked off their internal program earlier in the year, and we've actually been able to gain tremendous amount of insights and lessons learned from them that we can now apply and roll out to the rest of the federal workforce. So the announcement went out just a couple weeks ago for the CIO Council, and we're starting to now get our points of contacts established, and we're looking at launching the data science training program in the middle of September. This training program is going to be unique, certainly in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We're looking to go strictly online. So this is going to be a 6-month training program that will also include a 2-month capstone. So we're dedicating 4 months for the online training portion and then 2 months for the application. We find that the capstone, that approach to have a more hands-on ability to demonstrate the learning is important. There's additional information that's going to be posted for those of you who are, I'm sure a lot of everybody that's on here are data junkies. We're going to have some additional information posted on our CIO.gov site, so please be on the lookout for that. And then as far as the target population for the participants, we're looking to train, upskill up to 60 federal employees. Where we're going to require a commitment of 8 hours of training per week, and it will culminate with the capstone program. The capstone is going to be unique. We wanted to look at how do we, how is it possible to demonstrate a return on investment or ROI very quickly to an agency? So what we're going to do is actually tailor those capstones, those capstone projects to be more in alignment with their respective agencies. And what we would like to do is to maybe focus on something COVID related. As we heard from Jose and HHS, certainly their response to COVID was a little bit different than, potentially some of the other 24 CFO Act agencies and even some of our smaller agencies. So we're going to look at, because we know that large data sets were created and established over the last 7 and 8 months, we're going to leverage that data. And so we are requiring SMEs and mentors at each of the agencies to provide some of that assistance and help our trainees go through and actually collect some of those important data sets to be able to leverage in their respective capstone projects. Again, no cost to the agencies. We're looking at allocating approximately 2 to 3 slots per agency. And what's great about this is we're kicking off right now. So we're going through our marketing communications phase and our selection phase. Starting in September, middle of September, we're going to kick off the orientation and then actually kick off the training itself. And then because we know we have the November holiday and December holidays, we're looking at, kind of creating a small buffer there from a timing perspective and then launching into our capstone program around February timeframe. And we will wrap up around April. So hopefully that'll be right in conjunction with everything that's great that's coming out of HHS. So it'll, certainly help that newly acquired skill set go back and immediately provide some additional data science skill support there. And some of our sample courses include, we heard from John just a little while ago about R and Python. Those are absolutely included in this training program. In addition to that, the graph analytics and data visualization will be included. And we definitely have modules that are centered around data ethics as well.
It's an exciting announcement. Thanks, Dennis. So Ryan, of course, want to give you the same floor. What are you all currently working on? I know you mentioned you had some state and local teams as well that were dedicated to COVID right now too.
Yeah, thanks, Isaac. So, interestingly enough, and John Sprague doesn't know this story, but I came to hear him speak at NASA headquarters with an ATARC event about a year ago. And it was on the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission. So I was in the audience and, grabbed one of my coworkers, a gentleman named Gabe Chang, who was literally a rocket scientist with NASA years before. We wandered over, found Tom and Bill Suter and asked about the program and got involved, over the last year. It's really been wonderful. And you think about the collaboration here and just the center of gravity of this panel largely government-based. So as part of the industry perspective, I've been able to be involved and bring some of the experts from IBM, whether it's in the ethics world or the data world, as appropriate. Recently, we've also expanded, as you mentioned, to state and local, and they've had some of the leading edge efforts over the last 4 or 5 months, responding to needs from the citizens. So it's been a great opportunity for me to bring, kind of a cross-federal point of view as the industry person, and then also, recently state, local, plus federal examples of where we've responded with technology to the COVID outbreak. So, for those that are sort of on the fence about participating, I'd say, there's been more participation in the last few months as people are more stationary and not on the go, and I think it's contributed to the dialogue.
Great, thank you, Ryan. So Jose, just going back to you briefly, the stats you gave are incredible about how much information you actually have to consolidate between all these different hospitals. Of course, in the US, there's no central health information exchange. There's many different that hospitals operate off of, and it's tough to actually consolidate that information into one standardized format. How are you actually going about laying the groundwork so that you can have these machine learning and advanced capabilities?
Yeah, thank you. So the first thing is, and I'm going to just use hospitals as an example. So there were 4 different ways of receiving data from hospitals. One was through a system called CDC NHSN. One was through a collect mechanism that was set up by our ASPR, which is called HHS Teletracking. We built a small form off of Hhs Protect for those hospitals in very rural areas where they were just going to have to hand jam and enter it. And then the last area was a direct feed from states. So what we did is we standardized around 13 questions. When COVID-19 outbreaks started to actually occur across the United States, and before I was involved, before Hhs Protect ever existed, they were collecting it through CDC NHSN. CDC NHSN was only collecting data from about 2,900 to 3,000 hospitals. Again, like if you're exhausted after a day of treating COVID patients, you may not enter all that data that night. That's why there's vacillation in terms of reporting hospitals. But there are 6,200 hospitals in the United States that actually treat people with COVID. And the key is like the insight into the data. The more data we have, the more people live, the faster clinical trials, the better we are at moving supplies. So HHS ASPR set up this Hhs teletracking contract to try and close the gap with the 3,200 hospitals that we were missing COVID data on. And then they started to collect the exact same information, but they just created a little bit more modern portal to actually submit that information. And then over time, policy leaders across the HHS made this determination to use the Hhs teletracking portal as a mechanism to collect the data. They made that decision because when you think about it, COVID-19 changes rapidly. And I'm not an infectious disease expert, but nobody knew that loss of smell was a symptom. Nobody knew that swollen toes was a symptom. And so it's new and we're learning more things about it. So we need the ability to continuously pivot and collect different data elements so that we drive the right insight. And so we needed modern technology where we could like spin up an entire portal and start collecting data from hospitals within like 24 hours. So we started with multiple collect mechanisms. We standardized around the structured data elements that we would actually collect. And then we've slowly seen from a policy perspective, decisions made to narrow those collection mechanisms. That gives us the ability to run supervised machine learning off of the structured data sets we have for hospitals, as well as the unstructured data sets we have. And if you go on healthdata.gov right now, we've published, and this has never been done before, okay? Because when CDC was publishing this information, they were just publishing a projection off of 3,000 hospitals. We published the raw data for the 48 to 5,800 hospitals that report every day on healthdata.gov, all of the elements that are used to distribute remdesivir. We also post up every single day updated data sets on state and county level policies. So you can go in and model the impact of it. And then we post projections on the basis of the data that we have. And we provide the directions of how we made those projections so you can follow up and do our work. I would say the last key thing that we did that's a little bit different is historically when certain agencies collect data, if the data file isn't 100% complete, they throw out the entire data set. So if there's one data element missing, they throw out because they want a complete data set. Because COVID has changed so much, we decided let's just collect everything. Let's collect all of the data. If there's missing data elements, let's collect it, let's show it. Let's create a discussion around the importance of providing complete data sets. Let's use it as a call to action to get people to submit complete data sets. Now, that hasn't worked out super great. We've taken a lot of lumps from the media who kind of are saying we're manipulating the data. We've even been accused at the state level of doing that. But the discussion we're trying to create is the importance of submitting those data elements so we can really understand what's happening in the United States. And I'll close by saying this. The state that said we were, that there was something wrong with the data, I have a time series capability where I can go back in time through an immutable hash and every second show what was submitted. And when we went back with that state, what we found was that the data set that they submitted at 6/17, which was their, let's say, Monday report, they happened to resubmit that exact same data set at like 6/18 and they backdated it 2 days. So whether it was a mistake or not, having that time series capability and being able to make that information public is pure transparency. And so that's kind of how we've approached it. It's not for the faint of heart. So anybody that decides to try that approach, bless you and get a dog and tell your wife you're going to need lots of hugs because it is not an easy thing to do.
So people can actually go back through that time series and check it themselves, as well as I guess this goes into blockchain and hashing that you were talking about. I know you had led efforts at HHS on those fronts beforehand. Yeah,
so we're going to post, we haven't posted the time series data on healthdata.gov yet. We're going to. We've just been trying to make the data elements that we're posting more useful, more clear, because even though it says like estimate, like right at the top of the chart, we still get questions as to is it an estimate or not. So trying to first make it a little more user friendly. And then we do plan on posting the time series and the blockchain aficionados would say, well, what you just described isn't blockchain. And I would say, yes, you're right. But what I just described gives me the ability to fully engage in a distributed ecosystem because I've just created part of the infrastructure for a public-private key shared infrastructure that can be used to extend to an individual organization or an individual person. And so rather than run to blockchain, we're trying to create, or build half of the bridge, which adds a ton of value for us because we can kind of see what's going on and provide that as a transparency mechanism within our environment, but build half of the bridge so we have the ability to continue to extend into this more modern way of doing business. So that's the approach we've been taking.
Absolutely. And last question for you on that front, Jose, but what are some general tenets that agencies can make sure to implement so that they are transparent, they are accountable with their data?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, first thing is you have to have a modern identity access management and authentication system. If you were to get a demo of Hhs Protect right now, Isaac, and if you had access, I could log in, I could show you a Facebook page type picture of you, every single behavior for every single second that you were on the platform. What data did you access? What data did you curate? What data did you parse? How did you curate? How did you parse? And did you share?
Right.
If you don't have modern identity access management where you can create that level of transparent visibility into an actor's behavior with a data set, it's going to be very hard for people to share data with you. The second thing is the owner of that data set has to have the same level of visibility. What data did you access? What data did you parse? What data did you curate? What data did you share? Immutable record of that information. You also have to build it to give the individual who's sharing data with you complete control over their data elements. You log into my system, even if I authenticate you and you're a congressional leader and I authenticate you to have access to our system. If you want access to a CDC data set and they haven't already granted you guys access for whatever reason, you have to request it from CDC. I send them your authentication information. They make the decision as to whether or not you get access. So that control, providing that control makes people comfortable. I think the second thing is the time series capability. I mean, when we called the state and said, hey guys, we can go back in time with an immutable record that's timestamped to see what happened, that was a very powerful conversation to have around trust and transparency. And then the last thing, if you're going to be committed to transparency and it's different than the way not that it wasn't transparent before, but nobody has ever shared as much. If you're going to commit to that, you better be ready, because the learning experience over 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month is very difficult. You're taking something that people are used to seeing, you're providing a lot more detail, a lot more intelligence, and it's going to be hard for folks to digest, and you need to mentally be prepared for that challenge. And then I would just say the last lesson learned is leverage commercial technologies. We didn't hire an integrator, we integrated it in-house with government employees. We administer and manager the system, so we understand the costs and how all the technologies integrate, but we didn't go and build it. We leveraged modern commercial technologies so that we could do it very rapidly. And I think it was pretty eye-opening that we could do that and do it very quickly by taking that approach. And I think that's a lesson learned that really rings true if you commit to it.
Absolutely. Thanks. Well, we'll definitely keep this a topic of conversation going forward. Ryan, when we speak about all of these different capabilities that are being used right now, have you seen an increase in the role of data since COVID came to America and in the COVID era?
Yeah, we have, Isaac, and a couple things. And we've had, I think a lot of us probably were on the run, for work over the last several years. And, in March, I was always at conferences, and I would go have a conversation with one person, kind of seek them out or listen to it. And that was sort of how I would gather information. So I didn't go to telework. I really went to like stationary work, where I now have the ability to have screens going, and I'm probably kicking off much more data as an IBMer. And I think that's probably happening to many of the folks that were mobile. So we're hearing, that there is more information coming. Various different agencies are going to handle it differently. Moving people out, in the field was one of the things that they had to triage in March or whatever. Our conferences now are all virtual, like everything. So I think you're going to see more information sharing. All those tools are available to folks, certainly. And I think you're going to also see, as that happens, people like me who would not go in and start pulling reports or start looking for information are going to, like Dr. Ortega said, start getting into data science and probably creating more of a pull for it. So we've certainly seen it as a large organization of several 100,000 people. Our behavior has changed, and we're creating more data, and we're looking to pull information. And I think that's probably true amongst the federal agencies as well.
Great. Tom, I know data sharing is something that your platform directly addresses. Could you expand on that a little bit and just talk about how that actually works in practice?
We are, NCATS is really a research organization on rare disease. And because we collaborate so heavily, we're about 98, 99% collaborative. So you have data coming in from various sources, from various research partners, universities, pharma, everything. And number one, we have to scrub the data, make sure that we have no GDPR, CCPA implications in the data. We don't have duplicates. We don't have dirty data coming in or anomalies in the data for them. And then we want to give them that ability to reach across the data silos. They have their own. I want them to be able to reach across silos to see if there is correlating data in there that will help them in their research. And this way, we don't have to get into a situation where someone doesn't want to share something. What the sharing does within that platform is enable them to speed science. And if we start to open that up to other agencies, let's say DHS, CBP, well, they capture drugs coming in the country illegally. Sometimes they're not sure of the compounds that are in there. The ability to share some of the compounds with our libraries help them readily identify what the compound is, what the side effects are, what the implications are. if we add into that census data, we now have the ability to understand the demographic, psychographic implications in that particular geographic area. So you start to share the data, and that way you're able to really start to get a 360-degree view of the disease, the affliction, the addiction, whatever.
You talked about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said, so that's how that works.
Yeah, you talked about the importance of keeping bad data out as well. How do you actually do that?
When a record or transaction comes in, we mirror the image. We capture that, and then we interrogate the data to make sure that there's nothing in it that is going to violate policy and regulations. And if we find it, we trigger a ticket. We do not process data. It's already processed. We're just the overseers of that data coming in for propriety's sake, okay? We want to make sure that, you know, the PI, if we detect PII, that's bad. I can't eliminate the data record, nor should I, but I can tell the program area and our security team that it exists and that they can remove it. We did not want to get in the way of science. We wanted to basically have their back, let them do what they're doing, and we're going to make sure they're compliant, that if there is something bad in the data, we're going to flag it, generate a ticket so that it can be removed, so that it doesn't violate or invalidate their research.
Thanks, Tom. So Shakib, I want to tap into your experience working across different agencies and just having a good overview. What are the biggest challenges you're seeing right now, and what's some general good advice for agencies?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, NTIS as a federal agency, we have a really unique perspective because we work with several federal agencies as well as with several industry partners in this very unique joint venture partnership framework. And that allows us to get an idea about what are the problems that agencies face as they are trying to accomplish their mission. And even if the use cases are different, we of course see a lot of commonalities that have been stressed by my fellow panelists here already. As a data scientist, you know, of course, I strictly believe that the most value comes from being able to collect and curate and aggregate information from different systems. As my fellow panelists have mentioned, is that there is a major challenge in integrating that data from those systems at an enterprise-wide level, because traditionally most of the software systems were built to address a specific problem. So that they were like a big application project, like Tom mentioned, silos, creating silos there. And the difficulty, and then I hats off to Jose and Hhs for trying to integrate all this data coming at the nation level, not nationwide level, not only at enterprise level, and making sense of it, so that data can be actually fed into machine learning models that allow you to make predictions and find insight and identify some patterns in that data. So that's what we see most of the time with federal agencies, and what we always advise federal agencies is to get into the data game right now. You cannot wait, because data is, you know, it's the oil or the water or the muddy water is coming in. The spigot is already on. And as I was mentioned, my fellow panelists, a big problem also is data governance. So you need to establish the policies and procedure to be able to collect, aggregate, and find the data, but also the ability to share the data across within the federal agency or across the federal government. And that's extremely important. So, and not only you'd be, because like was mentioned before, a lot of agency may try to hold on their data because that data can have some maybe sensitive information, or they want to protect that data, etc. So once we establish specific rules for sharing that data, the next step is to create a platform that will take that will actually leverage the data that is there. And so that's what we usually work on in developing a data platform that has analytics capabilities, and it has a level of abstraction that can, where actually any agency can actually capture the data and use it in a very flexible, very agile approach to address multiple problems that they can face, and current challenges as well as future challenges.
Perfect. And I like what you said about how important it is to get in the data game right now. I think that's such good advice and a good transition to Dennis, what you all are trying to do, especially how you mentioned that it's upskilling, not just reskilling. It's really getting people who might not have that experience into the data game.
Yeah, that's absolutely important, and because again, we want to acknowledge that it's difficult to hire people, right? I mean, it's lengthy, it's a long process, and it requires just multiple levels to get people on board. So this does offer an immediate opportunity for agencies to take a look at their internal staff, who are some high potential diverse candidates that would be eligible for this type of a training program, and because of this being an online program, you can pick from anyone around the nation, right? So now, instead of having to be restricted to the National Capital Region, you can really kind of spread out and say, where can we select some of those very high potential, again, diverse candidates that we can include in this program. And again, yes, it's a small commitment, but when you start to look at, or it's a large commitment because it's 8 hours a week for 6 months. But when you actually start to look at, leading data science, data analytic programs that exist out there, I mean, the majority of them are a year or more at full time. So, this is a very good mix to allow full-time employees the ability to learn, to expand their existing data skills and be able to immediately start to apply that in the work setting.
So what are some of the technical skills as well that you all have identified as this is what people need to know?
Sure. So what's great about data science in general is that you don't have to be an IT professional, right? You don't have to be that. You don't have to have that 2210 designation. Data science can be acquired and leveraged really in any occupational field. So we are encouraging human resources, stats, economists, anyone who does program management, program analyst, anyone that's having to run reports, that's having to collect information, analyze information, and then display it in some kind of an Excel format or spreadsheet. This is going to be the ideal program for you, or the training program for you, because we are going to now incorporate some of the programming, the languages. We're looking at some of the data visualization software, including Tableau, but really, and even applying some statistics, and I don't know about everybody else here. I'm not a major fan of statistics, but we are going to introduce multiple statistical modeling and different data gathering techniques that can be applied in the future. And I mentioned earlier about partnering with the Census Bureau. What's really neat is, again, they've already wrapped up their program as of about a month ago, and I was able to sit in on their project presentations, and there was one specific group who decided to utilize 2 statistical models to apply the data and then provide that outcome, and they came out almost identical. I mean, it was like 0.003 difference between the 2 models they use. So we know that they're definitely learning. From a lessons learned standpoint, that this is information that could be definitely acquired in an online setting and then be applied almost instantly in the regular work that's going on. And again, we're looking at ways of increasing efficiency for those that are already performing data analysis, and then being able to help our leaders with more of that data-driven decision-making.
Perfect.
And Isaac, I just want to add, because I was talking to Dr. Ortega about this about a week ago. We have a very similar scaling process at IBM. So I think you'll see industry is in parallel doing some similar things. So business leaders are getting comfortable with some of those data science skills so they can get the so what, and they're not intimidated. And I think you'll see that with your partners across industry as well. Those skills should be coming up for many, many folks that you're engaged with.
I am happy to hear that. Yeah. So I do see, unfortunately, we're low on time, only 5 minutes left in this panel by my count. But I want to go around and make sure that our audience has something to leave with. We've also had some great Q&As. I see our speakers have tried to get to those as much as they can. So appreciate everyone asking questions too. Just going through this though, what are some lessons learned, tips, or advice that people in this audience can make sure to take home to their agencies, or rather, I guess, home to their actual homes for the short term? Dennis, we can start with you.
Yeah, so I was feverishly writing down some notes here. So I would like to just kind of leave with everyone that this is our first approach, right? Or first kind of shot at looking at training our federal workforce. This is a pilot. We absolutely are going to look at the data, right? I mean, we're very focused here on data, and we want to also look at lessons learned once we wrap this up, because there may be some potential in expanding this for a more longer term, and a larger audience. I mean, we're talking about a pilot, it's 60 individuals. We're taking an agile approach here, but we definitely want to kind of learn and build upon this. We also want to acknowledge that we have new CDOs on board, new chief data officers across the federal workforce, and we are partnering very closely with the CDO Council to look at what does this look like for 2021 and beyond, right? Because we really don't think this is going to be a 2020 or even a 2021, one and done and you're moving on. This is something that has a potential for tremendous impact and long-lasting results.
Great. And at the state and local level too, I know that CDOs are just popping up all of a sudden. I mean, many in response actually to COVID-19. So it's great to see that these efforts are catching on nationwide. Shakib, how about you? What takeaway do you have for our audience? And when I look at your position and how you work with predictive analytics specifically, that's something I think is so applicable right now.
Well, Isaac, you said the year of data, I would say the decade, if not the century of data. So this is at the beginning of a long journey, and the journey is hard. It's not, but the exciting thing as a data scientist is that artificial intelligence has really awesome power. It can really make a difference in making us make better decisions, operate more efficiently and more effectively. And I think we have to address this in mutual aspect. And I think the panel is great in that aspect, because some of us work on the infrastructure part, some of us work on the data platform part, some of them are on the skills part, etc. So all these have to come together to help agencies achieve their mission outcome and provide better services to citizens. So it's very important also to look at this awesome power has to have some ways to be checked, because so that's why we have to look at the ethical implication of AI. That's an important aspect that we have to look at. I'm working currently with some others in trying to develop a playbook about AI ethics, etc., that can be helpful for federal agencies to look at all aspects of the ethical implication. But at the same time, you have to always think about compared to what. Where are we now? So we're not doing also that great. There's a lot of improvement. So focus on AI, focus on what it can do, keep a check on it, but also try to see how the benefit that it brings and very swiftly.
Great. Ryan, how about you? What piece of advice do you have for people in attendance?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo many of the sentiments that have been said. I think there's going to be more and more information to manage. The governance is important on the front end. We're going to be automating as much as possible so that those sort of low value tasks can be handled to allow our data scientists to handle the high value ones. And then I'll just, come back to what we say in our value pop area, which is, so what? What does it mean for the mission line of business? And keep that in mind just as much as we keep, the financial impacts, the ethics, all of that in there. Keep the so what in mind as you're working through this.
Great. Jose, I know I asked you a little bit already about a few lessons learned and tips for our audience, but what about with this working group? What are you hoping to get out of it and also to achieve being a part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I'm not a data scientist. And I think that the key thing I think that this working group has to understand is, if the only way that you're going to achieve excellence in data sharing in the federal space is understanding FSMA and FATARA, so driving funds to modernization projects that are focused on making data available, and then securing data at rest and data in transit. And as a CIO, that's their responsibility. They also can redirect any like savings. I am the interim chief data officer at HHS, and you know, one of the things I hope to get out of this working group, and I want to continue with it, I think this discussion is fascinating, is the conversation really should be about the importance of data and missing data. And so when we went out and published our data and we started getting like killed by media outlets because you know they didn't understand it, that's exactly what we wanted. We weren't trying to get into a figure pointing competition, but we wanted to talk about the importance of data as it relates to this response, as it relates to protecting human lives. And we haven't gotten to that as a discussion point yet. It's been very much around, you know, telling us it's wrong or telling us it was loaded wrong or whatever. And we really want to get into the importance of data and data sharing to save people's lives when it comes to coronavirus. And so I hope to, you know, work with this group to maybe learn how to, you know, better manage that type of interface and better drive that discussion. Because to me, not a data scientist, somebody that's just trying to do something good, hopefully to help some folks in this country that are suffering, you know, from this disease. You know, that's the single most important thing.
Thanks. And Tom, I'll leave you with the toughest task of the day to close us out.
Okay. For me, and being part of NCATS and the science, I have to keep it simple. There are things that they have to do. They have to have access to information. They have to know what's going on where, who has done what to whom and how. And while they're giving them that capability, but also then handling that governance piece, knowing where the infractions are and being able to help eradicate them so that they can just move on. That is really what is important. Keeping it simple. If there's a tool that they want to use, they can bring it into our platform, plug it in. But not to get involved with the processing of data, not to build a new data lake, but rather correlate the data within those lakes to create meaning.
Well, Dennis, Shakib, Ryan, Tom, Jose, thank you all so much for being a part of this chat. I'm definitely happy covering government data and government technology that there will be a lot more of these to come. So appreciate your time today. I do think we're butting into the time a little bit of the next session. So we want to make sure to be considerate and save some time for them as well. Again, my name's Isaac Constance, Senior Staff Writer for GovLoop. So thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you got something out of this, and we'll definitely try to answer your questions that still exist in the Q&A portal, but we'll pass it along. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you, our panelists, and thank you, Isaac, for moderating this panel. That was a wonderful discussion. Next, we are going to go ahead and jump into our tech talk. We have some amazing partners over at Altair, so special thanks to Daniel Bolin, David Smalley, and the rest of the Altair team. We're really excited to have you guys part of our AI and data working group. So with that, I will give it over to David Smalley, who is responsible for the federal programs at Altair.
Thanks, Kirsten, and thank you guys at ATARC always. Thanks to the awesome panel before. Seeing 168 participants, especially in the virtual environment nowadays, is pretty awesome. So great work for you guys, per usual. So hey, thanks everybody for hopping on today. Like Kirsten said, my name is David Smalley, and I'm on the federal programs team over at Altair Engineering. And what I'm going to be talking about today is a use case / success case of how our platform, Altair Knowledge Works, was implemented by a partner, Immersion Consulting, to improve optimizing, operational efficiency at the United States Naval Academy. Just a quick check. Can everybody see my screen that I'm sharing for said slideshow? Awesome. All right, cool. All right, we'll dive right in then. So kind of the background on this situation. If there's any former USNA grads on the panel or any of the groups that are watching in, as you all know, every year as part of the curriculum at the United States Naval Academy, the midshipmen ship to locations around the globe to gain exposure to life on the ship in a program that is known as summer travel. Since 2014, our partner, Immersion Consulting, has been supporting the USNA in efforts to improve the operational efficiency of the midshipmen summer travel program. The focus of basically this contract was to achieve compliant, repeatable, and sustainable processes for planning and executing midshipmen travel worldwide. But as anybody can imagine, organizing over 3,000 midshipmen for ship travel to locations around the globe is a dynamic, complex, challenging, and constantly changing environment. The process of acquiring and managing data from travel arrangements to managing multiple changes in itineraries and entitlements is a high-risk process for human error and often needs rework. And essentially from the contract that they took over, the original processes, financial and logistical systems that were in place were unable to generate key travel information, resulting in delays, errors, cost overruns, and even financial inconveniences for the travelers. Imagine getting shipped overseas and then, oh, you have to get a ticket back and we'll reimburse you at 20 years old. Not fun, right? So what were the requirements of this? Why, where do we go from here? So what USNA needed was a proven solution with the ability to acquire, associate, join, cleanse, and produce clean, accurate data to support travel management decisions. The solution must support structured data and information from multiple disparate systems, as well as unstructured data and even information that was in legacy documents and artifacts from old file cabinets. In addition, the solution needed to be designed so that business analysts and data scientists could partner with the business teams to collaboratively generate and create and share insights. So the solution, after conducting an extensive amount of market research into solutions that could provide the capabilities needed to address these challenges, Immersion ultimately decided that Altair KnowledgeWorks and our analytics platform offered the best solution. Altair KnowledgeWorks provides users with the capability and functionality to leverage data and information from any source. We have a fun saying here, we don't care where it's coming from, we don't care where it's going. We allow you to manage and interact and cleanse, do all those fun buzzwords with your data. And we're able to do this without any enhancements or upgrades to your existing systems. I think as a lot of us can attest, nothing worse than going in, trying to plan out a contract, trying to, optimize the situation, RPA, right, throw out the buzzword, and then going in and realizing you need to add 3 or 4 more solutions to your stack to make it feasible. We were able to go into this environment without any need for enhancements or upgrades to the systems. And ultimately that led to Immersion in the United States Naval Academy, improving the accuracy and fidelity of their finance and accounting data, as well as the information used for decision support, while ultimately automating complex, high risk and costly manual business processes. And since I promised Kirsten them I'd keep this underneath, under the 7.5 minutes, in conclusion, by leveraging Altair, Immersion Consulting and USNA were able to deploy a broad analytics platform that reduces the complexity inherent to enterprise data management. And what does that mean, kind of in a nice summed up way? They were able to access more data from across the USNA enterprise, inclusive or external, structured or multi-structured, unusable data that was locked in file cabinets for 30 years, and usable data that was in an Oracle database or Excel sheets. And then we were able to have more trust with that data. We gave Immersion and the USNA greater control and governance over that data with a clean lineage on where they were getting it from and what they were actually doing with the data to produce these results. And ultimately that leads to more minds. This creates a data-centric environment or culture because you're empowering more collaboration by automating a lot of these manual processes, and you're able to actually allow people to gain insights and share insights on how to better improve said processes. So like I said, I think I was good on the time there, but thank you guys a ton. Always happy to come back. Kirsten, ATARC, you guys do an awesome job. So if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Thanks so much, David. We really enjoyed that presentation and the use case that you shared with us. We'll be sure to share that out in our email afterwards. So next we will begin our second panel, and the moderator for that panel will be founder and CEO of ATARC, Tom Suter.
Thank you, Kirsten. Great programming so far. Can all the panelists for my panel get your microphones unmuted, and can we see your video? And I'll tell you what, that last panel that we had in the Tech Talk, I've gotten so many texts that this is all fantastic. This is the best data and analytics panel I've seen in a long time. It's great. It's great. Now I have to moderate the next panel. So we have a lot to live up to with my panelists here. It's like the hype is crazy. And I will say, Isaac, fantastic job moderating that panel. He's definitely a rising star over at GovLoop, and love the perspectives from that panel. So moving on to our panel, just some real quick introductions. We have, where's Nevin? There he is. Hey, Nevin. He's a senior advisor, National Artificial Intelligence Institute, and he's also the chair of our value proposition of AI and ML, and he's our ML chair. And Nevin has a few other titles too that we'll get into later. How are you doing today, Nevin? Where are you based today?
Doing great. Out of Stafford, Virginia for today.
Okay, great, great. Next we have with us John Scott, who's a physician informaticist. Say that 10 times fast. At the Veterans Affairs. And nice you could meet with us, John. And where are you hailing from?
Well, for odd reasons, I'm near New York City today, and hopefully the power doesn't go out again. But normally, though, I work at the VA central office in DC.
Fantastic, fantastic. Right there, it's off Vermont, right? Yeah, it's been there
exactly
a few times. Great. And we also Anil Chowdhury, who's Director of AI Implementations at GSA, and that's a recent position, which he'll probably talk about a little bit. And he's our Ethics and Responsible AI Chair and one of our overall chairs. And Anil, where are you today? I don't know if you're actually in Arlington Cemetery right now, but.
No, you know, a friend shared this background with me, and it speaks to my values. So it just, you know, on why I engage in public service. So, you know, that's why I just keep it on. But I am in a remote location. No, I'm just kidding. I'm working from home, but as most of us are, trying to do the best we can in this crisis. Thank you.
Right, right. Yes, and I've got some relatives there, including my grandparents. So it's definitely sacred ground to me and all Americans. Next up, we have, who do I have? Vinu Varma, Generation System Team Lead at NIH. How are you doing today, Vinu?
Good.
Yes, good to see you. And where are you out of today?
Yeah, I'm working from home today, as most of us are in NIH. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to go back to work. I'm sick of working from home now.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Trust me. I think everybody out there can sympathize with that one.
Right.
And we have Ron Davis. Ron, are you on? Yep,
there you are. For some reason, my video, it says that you as the host will not allow me to join. So let me check again.
We'll do what we can there.
There we go.
There you go.
There he is. There we go.
So
yes, we do use Zoom. We use the FedRAMP version, but sometimes agencies don't like it so much. So we're still, the Zoom team is battling through that. But good to see your face, Ron.
Thank you.
Miss seeing you in person at all of our events. Ron's definitely a faithful ATARC attendee.
Yes, sir.
Also, we have with us Ken Farber, Chief Operating Officer for Bayon. He is the AI Policy, including Standards Chair. How are you doing today, Ken?
Good afternoon. I'm doing fine. Working from home in Silver Spring and looking forward to the conversation.
Great, great. And we have also Bernardo Buenviaja. Hopefully I got that semi-close. Chief Analytics and Evaluation Division over at the VA. How are you doing today? Bernardo? We sort of having some tech support problems with Bernardo, but we'll see if we can get him on. Okay, so maybe we'll start off we'll have everybody speak, but maybe we'll start off with Nevin, maybe going a little bit about your background and what you're working on these days, and talk a little bit about your group if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So we're really excited. The National Artificial Intelligence Institute was stood up almost a year ago. Its focus is on leading edge AI and support specifically of the veterans to assure their health and well-being. They've served us all very, very well. And we hope to be able to kind of do so as with them as well. As a 35-year combat vet, it's something that's very, very personal and I'm very passionate about. Some of the things we're looking in that area is specific to, you know, the medical portions of how we can apply AI in a meaningful way to help identify things. For example, like we're doing work with the COVID area, how we can do the diagnosis, you know, identify the lifespan, the propagation of that. We're working in other areas, like we have tech sprints, and within those tech sprints, we're trying through public-private partnerships with industry and academia, how we can, you know, cultivate new technologies and repurpose current technologies in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning so that we can do that. One of the things that we're also working on is trying to develop synthetic data sets to replicate our extensive amount of data that we have in the medical area. We have the largest collection of data in the world in many respects, and so that we can do these public-private partnerships so we can develop you know, demonstrated capabilities, create prototypes, and then eventually pilot them for deployment at our VA facilities across the country. And then we'll use actual data in that. So we have a multitude of partnerships in the academic front in areas that are focusing on how can we, you know, take information, for example, sleep studies, to be able to do diagnosis against, you know, in inputs and implications for things like, for example, cancer, and the like. So with that, I'll leave plenty of time for the other panelists. You've got a wonderful repertoire of high quality panelists today, and it's a privilege to be here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nevin. Next up, I'd love to hear Vinu, what's working over there at the NIH and what you're working on. And I mean, it's a hot area right now for this COVID response.
That is correct. So what I do is I have a contract solicitation generation system, and it is right now really, we have COVID requirements and telecommunication requirements. There's a lot going on in federal space as well to update provisions and clauses. Whereas what I've seen here is in our system, we have data and analytics, and incorporate that in the system so we can use the system for oversight as well as for policy recommendations that we can use and incorporate AI to update the system, upgrade the system. And so it is going to be so much easier not only for users but for the management to analyze data, make sure that we are using these complex clauses in the system, as well as run reports on a daily basis and provide recommendations to higher management. And it is like now we are so many data calls, and so that is very important for our organization to make sure our data is correct on a timely manner and provide that report to higher management within a day or two.
Yeah, I think that we're seeing more of the timeliness. We don't need an Excel spreadsheet that we get once a week or once a month anymore. It's like immediate. People expect things right away. Bernardo, are you on yet? I think we'll work that backstory. Just text me when we get Bernardo on going here. Next up, let's go to Anil over at GSA. Anil, I think that this is relatively recent. Not everybody knows about your move to GSA. Maybe talk a little bit about that and what you're working on in some of our groups.
Yes, so, you know, my background has always been operational research, statistical analysis, and somewhere along the way, I got involved with implementation of ERPs, you know, enterprise resource planning applications in public sector. And from there, you know, the next step to that was advanced data analytics. As, you know, as the area matured, we went from paginated reports. Tom, what you talk about is that 1-inch thick, you know, report that's the printed off from the dot matrix printer. to dynamic reports. So working on implementing those, and somewhere along the way, people started, leadership started asking the questions about, hey, you're telling me this story about who shot John. What I really want to know is insights about which way do you think things will go if the trends continue the way they will. And so I branched into AI and predictive analytics in that space. And somewhere along the way, just about 4 months ago now, I've been invited to join the Centers of Excellence within the General Services Administration as part of the government-wide technology transformation services. And within there, I am one of the leads in the artificial intelligence space, specifically focusing on implementation. Not so much about the technology or the tools or the problems, but how to put that package together in a cohesive way and implement it in an agency. And it ties really well into the work that I've already done with ATARC related to ethics and AI, because all these things that we're putting into these agencies, they're analytics on steroids. So what you don't want to do is put a model in place that takes pre-existing biases and just amplifies them, or takes causation correlation problems and amplifies those. So it's that part that ties in, is how to do this right, so that we can continue to provide services to our citizens at scale. And and everybody, and I'm so glad we have a really good private sector collaboration, public sector collaboration, and groups like ATARC that help put it together, where you could talk without worrying about like acquisition. Is this an acquisition? Is this not an acquisition? And just have those informal forums where everybody's working together to solve common problems for the common good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Anil. Next up, we'll go with Mr. Davis. Ron, if you could tell us a little bit, we're going back to the medical again. Just tell us a little bit about what you're working on.
Okay, as the same gentleman stated, I started out in infrastructure at a very early part of my career, and moved into data acquisitions and things of contracting, and then attended a CXO program that completed that in 2018. So by completing that, I was thrown in as a person of, our institute does not have a CTO, but myself and my colleague, Tom Harrell, we provide technology to our institute, very much so at the NIH. So right now we're currently very important, and we have, as Tom spoke this morning, about a CIFA program that we think is going to rationalize and do great things for science as a whole. So science is the important thing for us, and we have robotics, and so what's important about robotics is automation. So what best than AI to help us in this instance? So we're hoping that this will take care of different things, such as data management capabilities and data mining.
Yep. We talked about it a few weeks ago. I thought it was brilliant. Definitely want to ask you some more questions about that. And Bernardo, do we have you on? Okay, we're still having audio difficulties. I feel like, I'm on NBC News or something, and I've got somebody in the field. This is just what happens in this era. We'll have to navigate it through there, but hopefully we can get Bernardo on, even if we have to call Bernardo and go through you, Kirsten, because I definitely want to hear what he has to say. Ken Barber, excuse me. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Love to hear your perspectives from the industry side.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been involved in AI for quite a few years, from the very way back, and maybe the second AI summer back in the 80s, and was involved with that in graduate school. Then went into enterprise software, but then moved into public sector management consulting for the past 15 years, doing a lot of IT strategy, CIO support, enterprise architecture, things like that. But a little while ago, about a year and a half ago, I met Malesh Murugesan, who's the founder and CEO of Abion, and had the opportunity to join his team. So I'm back in software, which is terrific. So Abion focuses entirely on artificial intelligence software, specifically natural language processing. And that's where it gets interesting, I think, with data management, because natural language processing allows you to create data, structured data from unstructured data. Lots of different sources of data are really text, but they're images, so nobody can read them. Or they're distributed all around the organization in Word documents and PDFs and things like that. Nobody can find them. And so we provide a way to create structured data, join that data with robotic process automation, and help things actually happen. So there's a little bit of ability to fix part of the data problem within LP. But of course, the challenges that the other panelists have talked about around data management and analytics are extraordinary. Thinking about everything that's against you when you're trying to clean up and make data that's around an organization available for decision making. You've got organizational dynamics working against you. You've got the technology not always helping you, and you've got human nature sometimes in the way, because you create a valuable data set, people want to hold on to it. So the other way to look at this is, of course, organizational change, cultural change. And I think that's one of the most powerful ways, but technology can't really help you very much there. That's a matter of leadership and modeling and things like that. So I think it's a vital area. I know that all the other benefits we've talked about, data supporting decision-making and improving mission effectiveness, those are all valid, but we've got to find ways to get at the data, to manage the governance that's already been mentioned, and do that in a programmatic way so the data becomes available for really running the business, running the mission.
Great, thank you, Ken. And John, if you don't mind giving us a little background and maybe a little bit about, I hadn't heard I hadn't heard the term informaticist. What exactly is that? I can kind of guess at it, but
Well, informatics is what I was going to introduce myself. I was going to say I'm not a data scientist, but I have the perspective of a high-paid data entry clerk who's very impatient for that data to pay off. And that means I'm a physician using an electronic health record for a long time. And an informaticist is specifically clinical informaticist, focuses on that physician computer interaction. And it's really all about how does not just physicians, but nurses and everybody in healthcare who's using computers, how do you make that a more beneficial interaction, both at the entry side, and then what we're talking about here is that all that data that we enter turns into insight, and getting the insight to be given back to the clinical decision maker at the time that's necessary. And so I spent 30 years in the Army working on electronic records, and in the last 5 years or so of my career, I was doing health record policy and data management strategy at Defense Health. I hope Dr. Ben-Biahi gets on, because I was working with him until just last fall, and he's going to be a partner in what I'm going to talk about. Now I'm in the VHA, the Veterans Health Administration, and together the DoD and the VA have an opportunity here to create what should be one of the most powerful clinical data sets in the world. I think for reasons that many of you can appreciate. I think each of my fellow panelists, when I describe what we're looking at, can see how we can use what you're working on. We're looking at complete medical records for 20 million people with a funding and an obligation to try to improve health promotion and preventive care for those people. So we have complete health records from active duty service members. Those people become veterans, and then the Veterans Administration follows those people's outcomes till the rest of their life as a major benefits provider. So we have both a longitudinal breadth and a health record fullness that's really one of the most powerful clinical data sets in the world. And the challenge, as my fellow panelists have alluded to, is that data exists in silos largely. So there's a technical interoperability challenge that's pretty significant at our size. But also, as Ken mentioned, that it has to do with the organizational dynamics. You know, people who have worked very hard to make sure a data set has been collected properly for very good reasons want to be very careful with that. And so we have a data mining, M-I-N-E, as Tom Sasala says, a data mining problem that's really born out of a sense of responsibility of a number of data stewards. So when we try to put all of that data together, which is what we are actively doing, we have to be able to assure that the various data stewards' obligations for privacy and security can be met through good reference data management, through good data access controls. And that is the challenge that I'm going to have the privilege to help work on the VA side of the house now. And Dr. Ben Biahi, he's one of our DoD partners in trying to realize the potential that is in front of us.
I mean, really, that's the holy grail, isn't it? If you can get this to work and do that data mining, there's so many cures to diseases. You know, it really can transform, you know, healthcare. I really firmly believe that healthcare, to get costs down, you're just going to have to use these techniques to really do a lot of preventative type of work there.
And if I can take one more minute, I forgot to say this, putting my policy hat on. One of what makes us so uniquely powerful is we're large and we're a benefits provider, and we can do that kind of analytics within a HIPAA covered space, essentially, and then have a rapid translation of the insights to active management of our ongoing beneficiaries.
Yep. Good luck with that. I know that's a big job, and there's so many constituents in there. Bernardo, do we have you on?
Yes. Sorry, I'm joining by phone. For some reason, my Zoom wasn't working.
It's okay. We're lucky to have you. Believe me. We'll take you any way we can get you.
Okay. I'm the Chief of Analytics and Evaluation over at the Defense Health Agency. And for the past year, we've been working on centralizing our analytics capability and data management and enterprise measures capability. With the COVID response and the high op tempo, what we've learned is that we need to utilize our information systems, moving more towards a real-time data analytics and provide a full spectrum of analytics from the descriptive all the way to the deep learning capability that we need, including a pattern recognition analysis to simplify the mounds of data that we have to help with our COVID response. And so it was been an interesting time for the last couple of months, and it creates this need for rapid development of data visualizations and rapid development of measures, et cetera, in 24-hour periods. So it's been very challenging, and with the electronic health record, it will make things a lot better as we centralize a lot of our operations to get all the data.
Yes, it's definitely a big challenge. I know you all are working feverishly to get that to work together. It's probably the biggest healthcare project going on right now in the world. Not an easy thing, but we're gonna do what we can to help you all with this group. Definitely a big challenge. Okay, we've covered everybody real quick, and I want to get to some questions from the audience as much as possible. So feed them in. I think that the biggest thing, my career started before, right before Y2K, and I thought that was a fairly big Manhattan type project to get all these systems upgraded. Turned out not too many bad things happened there. 9/11, we were all around for that. This has hit us so fast and so hard for IT. I don't think we've ever had a challenge like this. How would you describe what's happened before COVID and what's contrasted with after COVID? Is there, the pace of change, the way we work with other people? Just if we can kind of go around and talk about how this has changed. What are the changes that have happened because of COVID? Does anybody want to jump in on that? Nevin?
Sure. One of the things we've recognized with COVID is the criticality to, consistently collect data. HR 4174, the public and Public Law 113-101, the Data Act, ascribe that we need to have data inventories, we need to have a data dictionary, we need to have a data catalog. And I think most would recognize the wisdom behind that and leveraging data as a strategic asset in order to operationalize it. In that consistent means in which to collect it, you can, consistently correlate it and put it in a contextual knowledge base upon which to see insights from. Effectively leverage data becomes not just the answers to your specific questions, but helps you illustrate those questions and those insights that need to be explored. And more importantly, through adaptive correlations, you can begin to start seeing trend analysis through the temporal analytics. And from that perspective, you begin to see some really interesting insights. The Joint Artificial Intelligence, they exist to feed business intelligence, the planning portion, so you understand what your strategic trade space or your options are. And then from there, you can feed what's called cognitive intelligence, so that you understand from those options what opportunities do you have, or what programs must you create in order to create the solutions you seek, rather than just reacting to your circumstances. You're informed and empowered through what was spoken to earlier, causality, to understand those influences that are creating effects. So it's a really powerful time that once we have this, we can really start, increasing the ability to serve the public in a way that helps provide enlightenment and empowers us to make the changes we need in order to evolve to where we're trying to go.
Yeah, Thank you, Nevin. Anybody else? Go ahead.
And I think Dr. Ben would say the same thing. For us who have been trying to make the case with some of our leaders that the ability to do rapid data management is important, the COVID has really shined a light on that and made that obvious to all of our leadership. We were trying to get more resources to help work on data management challenges already, and the COVID has given us a perfect set of examples. And both the DoD and VA, lots of people had to put aside their regular work. I think Dr. Ben is one of those people to be able to answer the question that the leaders were asking.
So Tom, I'd like to speak on that. So MCATS is a very special institute. It handles rare diseases, over 7,000 rare diseases. So that gives you an idea of what kind of data comes in. So on top of that, with COVID-19, that kind of put us in a very rampant uprising, and with Dr. Fauci and the president and also HHS, Jose, we had to provide things and create databases that they can get to very rapidly. So COVID-19 definitely showed us our pros and cons.
And piggybacking off of what Ron talked about, and all the other panelists, it's this idea where we're starting to see how flexible and elastic virtualization can be. In terms of not just our data sharing. How does that work? Data security. How does that work? Governance. How does that work? Software-defined networking. Is that the future? So we don't even have people going into a data center to replace physical things. It's all, in some magic cloud. So we're pushing all the boundaries, and we're learning really some interesting lessons in terms of how to communicate, how to share, and how to work towards a common goal together, especially for organizations that never had to work together before, and being able to realize the data that's out there and how you can enhance your own data sets with data from somebody else. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, Anil, every single agency, go ahead, Vinu, I'll save it.
So one of the experiences that we had was due to COVID-19 is certain areas you think that you have all that information about contractors, who is coming to your facility, so those were the challenges we encountered during COVID-19, that you need instant information. You need not only for employees, but for the contractors, that consolidate data center and who's working on what, who's reporting to whom. I felt like our department has done a wonderful job moving forward, getting all that data, but those things came in light that we really need to dive down, not just do high-level data, but in-depth data collection, and be prepared.
Yeah, I think we saw from the Open Data Initiative, like in 2009, you need to be able to have APIs. You need to be able, what agency doesn't collaborate with somebody else, some other stakeholder? It doesn't matter if you're in law enforcement, it doesn't matter if you're in healthcare, you have to build your data to share internally and externally. Ken, you want to add anything? Ken, you're on mute. Yeah, I did a webinar myself, and I was on mute for about 2 minutes, wondering why nobody was answering my question. So,
well, I had a great answer that only took a couple seconds. Now I've forgotten it. So.
You wrote it in the margin.
It was pretty profound, I'm sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty great, as usual. So, but what we've seen as a small business, we've got a handful of clients, and what we've seen is that the positive is that people are understanding and they're trying to use the collaboration tools more, and we're able to be effective, and they're able to provide the support and give the insight and the feedback that we need to move forward. The team's able to get work done. But what we're finding is, even with our software engineers, who are not the most expressive or necessarily social people, we're missing a little bit of that interaction. And I think we're actually missing some of that insight that happens in just random conversations. I can think back over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and I could start ticking off opportunities, ideas that came only because I ran into somebody, in the hallway, ran into somebody on the street. So I think we're all missing that, and we're going to have to figure out a way, I hope we can, to replace that somehow. I think the collaboration tools provide their own benefits. You have some of the record keeping is nice, the chats back and forth are nice. Being multimodal, I think, can be effective. You're writing and you're listening, and sometimes you're multitasking. So there are benefits there, but I'm looking forward to getting back to a little bit more of a normalcy and being able to, hang out with people a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. With ATARC, Kirsten, I haven't even seen her in person since March. I will say that the collaboration tools have been helpful, because I realized that I probably was half paying attention to these conference calls. Now you're kind of forced, you got to look somebody in the face. I think it's better than a conference call. It's less than being in person. And maybe, when you get back to in person, you'll have folks in person, folks remote, but at least we'll feel like you're a little bit there with these kind of collaborative tools. Great. And Bernardo, I didn't want to leave you out. Did you want to add anything to this topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that as this COVID response, there's a lot of good collaboration and with these, these collaboration tools, but with the organizations, the government agencies that were talking to each other, I saw a lot of good collaboration, and it enabled our for instance, our modeling efforts to come to consensus in the area that I was working at, was we were able to get a complete picture in 3 days because the collaboration and the common purpose was very nice. But we ran into common methodologies and common terms of reference when you're dealing with lots of agencies.
You know, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, one of the very interesting things we start to find out about, you know, in a crisis is what's important and what's not important. And it's so interesting to see that this idea, who's in a building and who did they interact with, has all of a sudden become a problem that everybody's working to solve. And, you know, military has some applications, you know, with the Blue Force Tracker. When you're in Department of State, you know, outside at an embassy, you have similar protocols, right? But building this solution at scale for the entire federal government to say who was in a building, who did you touch, you know, where did you interact? Those are some very interesting application problems from an AI perspective to say, if we hold this meeting in person, what can we expect the model to go? You know, so those are some of the interesting things that I'm seeing some of my partners try to think through. Thank you.
Yeah, that's, as people get back into the buildings, it's crazy. I actually saw an article that they're looking to put people that were in skiffs out at their houses now, because you can't, how do you social distance in a skiff? And it means you don't have as many people there, which means you're not getting as much work done, honestly. Very, very interesting. We've got some questions. I'm not going to attribute them to anybody, but I've got one. Dr. Ben and Dr. Scott, and feel free for anybody else if they want to chip in. Would like to hear how your respective organizations are governing data used to facilitate sharing and securing 360 view of service folks' data records. What does your stack look like?
Wow. Okay. Well, we have a COVID action team. Everything is centralized, and we're connected to multiple organizations when it comes to managing. We, from the analytics perspective and data perspective, working in these teams is kind of like a huge system with inputs and outputs, and trying to sew all the data together. I think everybody would agree that data is very siloed, and then trying to integrate everything as a system. These CAT teams provided an excellent opportunity to connect everything together. But unfortunately, they wanted everything at the same time, so it was a rapid op-tempo 24/7 for almost 100 days.
Yeah. I would add, between DoD and VA collaboration and answering that question, there's really 3 major lines of effort, or lanes of effort, that we've worked on. We, first of all, wanted to make sure all of the electronic information was readable by clinicians, you know, for patients who move back and forth. And as both departments adopt a new EHR, that was critical for us. And so we created jointly in what is a pretty significant effort in terms of semantic interoperability, a record viewer. Doesn't sound like a whole lot unless you realize that looking at a person's complete medical record is pretty important when you're trying to make clinical decisions. So we, the DoD and VA, are able to show the entirety of the electronic record information across the departments now in at least a viewer. We also have to be able to provide.
Sorry, is that like the blue button? Is that what you guys developed a few years ago? Kind of the blue button.
There's a lot of reused technology from Blue Button in this. The main thing is technical connections to the many different sources of electronic health record data in both departments. Yeah. That's probably the hardest part of it. And then terminology mapping, and then putting that together into a a basic record viewer is not the most challenging part. And, you know, it's not the sexiest looking viewer in the world, but the mapping, the agreeing on terminology standards for all the different domains of health record data, and then doing all that mapping and then operationalizing that so you can find what you're looking for. That was the big part. All of that terminology mapping now needs to be used to help us put the data together so that we can compute on it for, you know, for the kinds of things we're talking about in this lane. The third lane, and I'll be brief because there's other stuff to talk about, is we also have to provide a human readable set of documents to the VA, or the DoD has to provide to the VA, because that's how they still do benefits adjudication. And we actually have managed to create a pretty good set of artifact interoperability or document exchange between DoD and VA for that.
Yeah, I was about to say, and Bernardo, it's great you're doing it for the VA, but we see this in agriculture where there's 10 different ways to say grain, and then you have to work with CB, you know, you have to work with the, I forget which part of the DHS that does this, but, you know, they're importing grains or something. You've got to have the exact, everybody has to understand what you're trying to do. Bernardo, you want to add anything to that, or?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, just like a simple thing like understanding the types of beds, when you're combining all the different cultures together, all the different services, making everybody understand the same thing, it causes, and then once you're, you know, trying to get everybody to agree, you know, developing lots of data filters so that everybody can get the type of view they're looking for is, you know, very time consuming, but we do it so that all of the constituents are represented when we're making our data visualizations.
Yeah, does anybody else want to kind of add to that? You know, like how do we're going to share data, but everybody's, you know, tags things differently. Does anybody else want to add to that conversation beyond healthcare and beyond?
So Tom, you said you were going to come back to me about CFR. That's the whole reason Tom, as the professor, created CFR and John Poulos, is because private sector, public sector, and academia does not trust each other with their data. So we wanted to be autonomous to anyone that this will be able to, all scientists, academia, the private sector could be able to utilize this data without worrying about someone taking it, using it in a precarious way. So we wanted to make sure that it had security in it. It provides different elements as far as anyone can actually find out cures that we might not even be aware of right now, and even just doing the experiments within all different, even pharmaceutical through Spot. They're a good organization that handles things in a secure manner. So that's the sole thing of the birth of CFR, because of data being utilized in a private way.
Ron, is that similar to like how NOAA gives their data sets to everybody and everybody takes them and uses them and adds value on top of it? But they are the kind of like, go ahead.
Right. So I'm not so much aware of how NOAA is, but the data sets remain at their home. They, it's not, it doesn't go to a major data set. It'll all be, you still keep your data set, but it's still available in a secure manner. So if NOAA is doing that same manner with weather and things of that nature, that's great. And that's the kind of things that we want to everyone to join into to make this a collaborative event.
And, just to add to what Ron talked about is, this, and these are the types of issues I deal with quite a bit, is that, when we talk about, the cloud and infrastructure and containers, you have to have a different style of thinking. So you don't have to send your data to somebody. They could take their model, send it to you, conduct the evaluation analysis they need, and take that answer back. So you don't have to, send your data. You can let them use your data on your premises in a secure manner. So it's that sort of thinking that is really important going forward. Thank you.
Bring the analytics to the data. That's huge.
Yeah, I'd like to add on that because that's a really different way of looking at it, and I think it's the way we need to look at it. The data lakes of the past, that you put it all in one place. The challenges you have there is the disaggregation of data and how it's propagated, and more importantly, is your data current? When you make data visible to understand where it is and then accessible through a linkage system or a neural net system, then you derive a level of understanding that it exceeds what you previously had. Whereas the disaggregation of data in the way it traditionally has resided, allows us to come to a conclusion, but it's not a collective conclusion, and it precludes the ability to collaborate and understand, and nobody's better able to help sustain and mature that data or curate than the person who's curating it, and in that process we begin to appreciate the fact that the meta tagging strategy of understanding the discovery portion of where this data is, the inventory, and then the searching portion or the authorization to have access to that data helps us better understand how we can synchronize that data in a way to help elevate insights. And through that linkage system, it will establish a level that we can have credibility with our data, that builds confidence, that drives a level of trust in the data so that we can have a reliable outcome.
Great. Anybody else want to throw in on that? Ken? Vinu? Okay.
Yeah,
the question. Oh, go ahead, Vinu.
Go ahead, Ken, please.
No, I insist.
All right, so I'll go ahead. Yeah, I totally agree with all of you actually, and there are different ways. And I think so. What is most important is understanding your business and what your business needs are, and how you can use the data effectively for within the business. And there are different, you would say, point of contact, and everyone needs a certain portion of data, and then you analyze their business needs. Not just do one collective data and then you're trying to figure out where do we fit in, how I can use it. But to start the project, it's very important to target exactly what you're looking for and what is the useful data and where we can use this and use for different, you can add AI to it, or you can add different policy models to it. So you have to have a vision and goal, and person's understanding of business is very important, just not going in to just look good. Oh, we got the data tools in our organization. And that is very important, to have a good vision, not invest funding in just to have that data tool in the vision, in the organization.
Great. And John, I don't know if you were like kind of really animated there. I know you wanted to add something at some point.
Well, I
That's the great thing about video. I could tell that. If you were on
gallery,
the call, I wouldn't
gallery
know.
view. That's how you have to. I was just basically foot stomping the bring the analytics to the data concept that Anil was introducing, and that's going to be very important for DoD and VA, where for various reasons it's not easy for us to export the data, and we're going to be interested in being able to apply analytic tools and models without exporting the data itself.
Great. Okay, we're starting to get, I don't know what happened to our hour. We're getting toward the end. What would you like to see in your day job? How could this working group, what would you like to see come out of it that could help you in your normal day-to-day job? And I know, Ken, you're private industry, but just what you would see. If we can go, let everybody throw in on this to kind of conclude the panel. What would be great for, if we can get done in this, that you'd like to see? And let's start off with you, John.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to be on an ONC panel at one point, and when the precision medicine initiative was underway, and there was a cancer work stream to that, and there was a data group under the cancer, and I was representing DoD, and what struck me was there is actually great enthusiasm among the chief data officers of the federal health agencies to have a greater capability to share data for collective insights, and that's never really got going as a an ongoing work group, and I think just a forum that allows those people to come together, that's not just a a media lunch, because there are those things too, but an actual taking some minutes and keeping track of it, and that is going to be enthusiastically supported, in my opinion, by people in chief data offices of each of the federal agencies.
Yeah, and we've been doing this for a while in other domains, and it's worked out really well when you got, you pull the people together, they're comparing notes, and we're actually tracking deliverables. And this is just a kickoff, but that's where we'd really like to see it take us. Vinu?
Yeah, I would definitely say using data effectively and using it to improve the organization, or to provide, if we are sharing the data, to make sure that we are reaching out to people that need that data. So that is a very outreach program, plus within the organization, internal, if it's data used internally. So we need to make that awareness that I feel like sometimes we have tools, and that lack of awareness within the organization to use that data effectively, that is a challenge as well. So I would definitely like to see them to improve the organization or reaching out to customers.
Great, well put. Bernardo?
Well, I think continuing with the DoD VA partnership as we learning to work together, creating the opportunity for higher levels of analytics to simplify the amount of information that we've got, so we can focus on the most important. We tend to get very busy and focused on the descriptive and diagnostic portions of it, but moving into the deep learning, predictive and prescriptive, creating that, enabling the change for that to occur would be very helpful through technological developments. Yeah.
Yes, and I know you have a big job. I remember I worked with the DoD VA IPO for a while in different guises. It's been going on a while, and it's just a big job. But I think the benefits of you all getting these records working together is just tremendous for the world, really. It's not just the United States. Nevin, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a use case approach is usually one that I'd recommend. The Air Force has done an amazing job of doing just that. They've developed a data lab to focus their efforts on that. The State Department has created a Center for Analytics, and what they're doing there is just amazing. They're just doing some phenomenal work to help with the support of their mission and driving capability there. And then of course the National Artificial Intelligence is finding some amazing solutions and really helping our veterans. ATARC is really taking a great approach to this and how they're looking at this. One of the things that the effort they'd asked me to get a group together who were just really creating some interesting insights. It was kind of developed off a Harvard Business Review of what's the value of AI. And so we created a value proposition group, and what we've come to realize is the criticality of data, obviously, that feeds these AI algorithms, and how you have to establish the veracity and the variety of that. So I would say that as we look around government, we see just some really innovative approaches to solving some really complex problems, and the scaling, obviously, the masses is something unique to government. So I'm really excited about what the future has to offer and how we're looking at this in a unique and interesting way. So panels like this and what everybody's contributed here has really, provided some eye-opening insights to I believe, a really bright future. So I'm very optimistic of how things are coming together.
Great. Anil?
Yeah, so, one of the things that I like to leave everybody with, because I'm in the actual put things in motion sort of business, right, is that a lot of times people have this conception that the government isn't moving fast enough. And what I ask people to consider is, if it's a small private company that leaks 500 of your records, it's a different story. Now imagine if government moves so fast and you release 5 million records, related to people. The context, the scale is different. So what we have to do is, we can't be at the really edge of the innovation. We are exploring it. We are all aware of it. But what we have to do is, till the technology is mature enough, we can't put it into production in service of our citizens. And that's something that I'd like everybody to take away with, is the role of government vis-a-vis the private sector. And although we are participating in panels such as yours, we are engaging with industry, there's certain things that we do so that we do it on behalf of the American people. We're not a profit-making business. We are a service business, so our risks are a little different. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Ron, Mr. Davis?
I'd just like to kudos to the panelists. They have really came forward with what's necessary. Every point was well taken. And I think that's a challenge to us, that we should really move forward in that direction. I like what John said when they had the groups to get together and wanted to start go over how to actually truly share and collaborate. That's truly important. We've done enough analysis. I think now it's time for us to start showing what we have done in these analysis, because for us it's all about life. So that's my main goal, is to try to move forward and try to save lives. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well put. And one of the concepts we have, and we're kind of piloting for TIC 3.0, is the idea of having a lab. Having an ATARC lab where you can kind of kick the tires on different technology. And, this is one of the things we brought up to the Jake. We don't want to be the Jake lab, but we would like to be the lab before that lab, where I can look at some piece of technology and say, this is something I'm interested in. This is, this is something that I may take to the next level. And I think we want to be more action. It's great we're going to come out with papers and everything, but at the end of the day, if we can do things that are going to help the folks, the warfighters, the doctors do their job better. I'd like us to, it's great we're writing white papers, but really lead to some actionable type things. And so we're piloting this lab concept over in another group, but I really think that this area lends itself well to that. So thank you for bringing that up, Ron. And Ken, from the industry perspective, there's anything you see trends across government. It'd be good to get your final perspectives.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd love to. The important thing is, yes, we're private sector, but the success of this working group is critical to us. Moving forward, as we've all talked about, data is critical to the success of any AI implementation. You've got to have data to train the models, because pretty much all of the industrial AI out there is machine learning technology. And so you've got to have training data, you've got to train the models, get them to an accuracy level that's acceptable. And to do that, you've got to have a hand on your data. And so any way that that I can help, my team can help with helping this team, this group be successful in helping the government get a handle on its data, I'd love to support. But if I may, I'd suggest to focus on, at least in part, on best practices. Find out who's doing what, where, and what's being successful. I find that's a way that a lot of government folks can, they'll look at that. They know that it's developed kind of within their world rather than a commercial practice. And they'll take it and adopt it and use it and find some success. So that's one small suggestion, but yeah, it's critical that groups like this are effective, and I'm glad ATARC's putting this together.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And we've done this in other places where I know in DevOps we had DHS came out with a 50-page manual on DevOps. That was useful to other agencies that didn't have to recreate the wheel from ground zero. They took pieces of what they thought were important and utilized it in their own thing. Is there anybody else that wants to add anything? I think we're just about out of time, but did we leave anything else important on the floor? We don't want to leave it on the floor. Okay, I think we are done. We're going to turn this back to Kirsten, who's going to very briefly go over the working group model and the categories and how to get involved. Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you to the panel. Very good discussion.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank
you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And special thank you to all their officers. So the official AI and data analytics project or working group that is now launched will include project teams such as predictive analytics, the value proposition of AI and ML and data, AI and data policy including standards, health architecture, AI and data models, and data security. So those will be additional teams added on to our already existing working group. If you'd like to get involved and you're with government, I'll be reaching out to you, and we'll be reaching out to industry as well. So if you would like to be a part of any of these project teams, if you'd like to chair any of these project teams, or if you haven't heard of a project team that we listed but you'd like to, we will go ahead and set that up for you. I will have the slide shared so that you can go ahead and take a look at that as well. Alyssa, would you mind sharing the slide for us? Thank you, Alyssa. So again, if there's any additional teams that you'd like to see within this working group, feel free to reach out to me and ATARC and we can set that up. Thank you all for joining us today. Unfortunately, this is the time that we have, but next week, on Thursday, August 13th, we'll have another webinar on keeping the workforce and supply chain resilient during disruption and information sharing on the evolving security of teleworkers during COVID-19. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next week at our weekly webinar.
Thank you, Kristen.